Okay, so we're factoring trinomials. First of all, a trinomial is an equation or a polynomial that has three terms involved, okay? Remember, our addition and subtraction signs separate these, so we have three terms involved here. And when we go to factor this, what we're really doing is right now we're in what's called standard form, okay? So this is known as standard. And what we're doing when we factor it, what form are we going into? Anyone know? Factored form, yeah, makes sense. We're going into our factored form. So, in order to factor this, we talked about when a was a value of 1, all we really needed was two numbers that added up to our b, and those same two numbers needed to multiply to our c value. But we won't be able to use that process today because we have an a value that's other than 1. What we're going to do is something different. If you guys recall, we also had another method where we took the factors of the a and c, so the first and last terms. So we're going to look at that. In this case, we have 5. There are only two factors to 5, 1 and 5. So we're going to put 1x and 5x. And we're going to write the factors of 8. We have 1 and 8 and 2 and 4. Okay? So, what we're going to do is we're going to set these into columns. And we know when we go through these, we're eventually going to need the columns that when we multiply them, their products are going to need to add up to our middle term. And our middle term here is negative 22x. Okay? Now, the reason we've done them in different colors is because in factored form, what we're going to get is f at x is going to be equal to, and we're going to have two sets of brackets. The first terms in both brackets will come from this column, and the second terms in each bracket will come from one of these two columns. We just got to figure out which one is the column we're going to be taking from. So when we go through this, we're going to use a bit of trial and error. 1x times 1 and 5x times 8 will give us 1x and 40x. Any combination of those make negative 22? No. So that doesn't work. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go across diagonally. 5x times 1 and 1 times 8x will give us 5x and 8x. Any combination of those make negative 22? No. So what we know is this column doesn't work. Okay? So we should not be taking numbers from this column, but we do got to make sure we have the correct numbers in the other one. So 1 times 2 and 5 times 4 gives us 2x and 20x. Will that work? Yes, it'll work only if what? They're both negative. So I'm going to draw some permanent lines in here. 1x times 2 and 5x times 4 is going to give us our 2x and 20x. Okay? And we know that if they're both negative, they'll add up to negative 22. Well, in order to make both of those negative, when we multiply, one of these terms will have to be negative. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the second terms, the terms that I've written in green, and I'm going to make them both negative in this case. Now, why will that work? When I take 1x times negative 2, that'll give us negative 2x. And 5x times negative 4 will give us negative 20x, and those will add to negative 22x. But do they still multiply to our positive 8 factor? What is negative 2 times negative 4? Positive 8. So that does work. Okay? We can't have negative values that multiply to a positive. So we're going to put our values into our columns now, or into our brackets. I'm going to have 1x in one of them and 5x in the other. And then when we place these in the brackets, we have to make sure what we multiplied by goes into an opposite bracket. So 1x was multiplied by negative 2, which means 1x and negative 2 have to go into opposite brackets. And because we multiplied 5x and negative 4, 5x and negative 4 have to go into opposite brackets. Okay. So this is our answer. I'm just going to rewrite it in black so it looks a little more permanent. I'm not changing anything but the color here. Our answer is x minus 4 and 5x minus 2.